this is Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a marvelous day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. Well, today someone asked me to speak on this subject. There has been a lot of talk among African Americans about this, and I don't think we quite know how to address it, but I'm going to address it. And I want to say up front that I'm saying this with no hatred or malice in my heart. But this is something that Black Americans would like for Black immigrants, specifically African immigrants, to know. We have gotten the word through various sources that Africans tell their children to stay away from Black Americans. Most of this has to do with stereotypes, but we know that stereotypes are sometimes based in fact. So if Africans and other Black immigrants are telling their children to stay away from Black Americans, that's acceptable because that's what you believe if you believe the stereotypes. And certainly some of that is true. What you've heard, some of that is true because we aren't perfect and we never claim to be. So everybody should do what they feel is right for their children. And if you feel like the right thing for your children to do, to stay away from Black Americans and to stay away from Black American children, Black American culture, we support that. I do. And many Black Americans feel like I feel. If that's what you want to do, that's how you feel, that's what you should do. Everybody should do what is best and what they feel is best for their children because you are responsible for those children. And there's another thing. Very often, when you hear Africans speak about their American experience, especially if they have an opportunity to talk to white people, they always say that white Americans are nicer to them than Black Americans. So their experience with white Americans is much better than their experience with Black Americans, according to them. So that's another reason why they should bond more with white people than they do with Black Americans. We get that. And it makes all the sense in the world. So we're in agreement with that. You should bond with white people and make your friendships and your connections with white people because clearly you have a better connection with them than you do with Black Americans. And we understand that and we support it. Now here's the problem. When African children, when the children of African immigrants and probably other Black immigrants too. So I'm going to throw them in to make sure that everybody is covered. So this goes for every Black immigrant to the United States. When your children go astray in the United States, somehow you find a way to drag Black Americans into the scenario, saying things like, oh, well, they were over there influenced by those Black Americans. Well, remember now, you told your children to stay away from Black Americans. You were going to live in white communities, and your children were going to school with white children, and they were going to be influenced by white people. And a lot of your children come out and say that. Especially on social media, you see videos of these immigrant children talking about the culture of their homes with their parents and what they're being taught. So this information is not hidden. It's being talked about on social media, and your children are confirming what the rumors are. So this is where the information is coming from. So you, the immigrants, have had your say, and now it's time for us to have our say. Now, America is our home. This is our ancestral home. We have been here for 500 years, according to some, and we navigate this society based on what we know, what we have learned, and what our collective experiences have been. We did not have the luxury of coming to a country that was already built, a first world country with all the modern conveniences that we have in America, and decide that we can just come in and we'll make our lives what we wanted them to be. We did not have that luxury. We had to come here. Our foreparents had to come here and build this country. So you come here, and in making your own place, you decide that you're going to bond with white people. That's your prerogative. So what we're saying is that we appreciate the fact that you want to do what is best for your children. And we want to do what's best for ours too, believe it or not. We really do. But what we don't want is to be dragged into your situation when your children get in trouble. Because now, from what we hear, you want the people back home, wherever you came from in Africa, to believe that whatever happened to your children, they went astray, it wasn't their fault. It was the fault of Black Americans. That's you not taking accountability for raising your children. Black Americans are not responsible for raising your children or influencing your children, especially when you have told them to stay away from Black Americans. So we respect your decision, and we're comfortable with it. I know I am. And I don't know any Black American that's upset about it. But what's problematic, and not only problematic, I'm going to go as far as to say what pisses Black Americans off is when we get dragged into something that has nothing to do with us. Just like that Toby Umbiselli guy down there in Florida. He had all this ugly stuff on his Twitter page about Black Americans. But when he got toe tagged down there in Florida, that had nothing to do with Black Americans. Black Americans did not do anything to him or influence him or influence the person who did toe tag him. Black people didn't have anything to do with that. And I'm not saying they blamed Black Americans on that. I'm just saying that when things go wrong, remember the choices you've made. Now, what I can offer as a suggestion, and you may or may not find this helpful, is this. Many Black Americans leave the southern part of the United States and go to other parts. They go to the Northeast, the Midwest, or out west. And sometimes when they leave these small southern towns and go to those large cities where they have to make an adjustment to large city culture, those children go astray too. And sometimes what their parents will do is send them back to the South in hopes that being in the smaller setting around kinfolk who really care about them can help get that behavior under control. So that is what African Americans sometimes do. Everybody has to stay on top of their children's behavior because they get warnings before they do that big thing that's going to really embarrass you. Children do give warning. So what a lot of Black Americans will do is send their children back to the South and let their family back in the South try to get that behavior under control. Now that is passing your responsibility on to somebody else. But if you're not ready to leave that environment that might be toxic for your children, then you might consider sending them back to Africa around their kinfolk, the village, and the tribe to try and get that behavior under control. But under no circumstance do Black Americans want to be involved once your children get in trouble and go astray. And this is only for the Africans who are teaching their children to stay away from Black Americans because of all of the things that you believe to be, all of the negative things that you believe to be true about Black Americans. I'm only speaking to those Africans. I'm not speaking to Africans who might have a more open mind about this. Well, some of you don't have an open mind, and this conversation is for you. This is something that has been very upsetting to Black Americans, all of this offensive rhetoric that you've been spewing. Now, this has pissed some Black Americans off so much that somebody wrote in my comment section, I wish that they had never started letting Africans come to the United States. Now, that's how annoyed that person was. We need to make an agreement. Black Americans and Africans need to make this agreement. You keep your children in your communities with your white folks, and then when something goes wrong with them, you keep that over there with them. Don't bring us into it under any circumstance. Please understand, this is not done in malice or hatred or anything. This is done out of regard for Black Americans who have complained about this and complained about this for quite some time. And what they say is, when your children go astray in the United States of America, and there are many temptations here, many, do not bring Black Americans into it because we have our hands full with our own children and our own problems. And I'm going to end with this. Black Americans wanted other Black people to come to this country. We did, because we did want allies. We will be honest about that. We wanted allies. We didn't know what y'all were running from or escaping from, but we did know what you were coming to. And we did know that in the United States, as far as black people are concerned, there's power in numbers. So we wanted the numbers, but we were not really on the same page. So I will admit that. And it has worked for us to stick together. And we don't agree on everything, but it has worked for us. And we turned this country around because we worked together. But we wanted more black people. We thought the more the merrier, the more we could get done. But we see that we were the only ones with that mindset. And at first, it seemed to be workable. We were proud of Africans. Africans come here and they do well in school. And I think a lot of us were really proud that Africans did so well in these Ivy League schools and these big universities, because we were really deprived of the opportunity to get a good education so we could be competitive. We were denied that. It's not because we're dumb, it's not because we're lazy. But it's no point in me trying to convince you of that, because the people I'm talking to already have a narrow, as far as I'm concerned, and a negative mindset towards black Americans. But I will just say to you that America did not provide the proper foundation for black Americans to be able to be competitive in the educational arena. In every other arena, we can outdo anybody. But when it comes down to doing the math and the science and all of the STEM programs, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics programs, we did not have the benefit of a strong foundation in those subjects. And I am reluctant to say this, because anything that we say, you'll try to take it and use it against us. But I'm being honest about this, and we were proud that the Africans were able to come here and do the work in these colleges. Now our students are doing better, but Africans always did well. They would only let you come here if you were going to do well. So we were proud of the Africans. And we related to you because we are of African descent. But somewhere along the way, something went wrong. Because if you have smart Africans who can really operate the educational system, and black Americans who can actually operate everything else, that would be a power dynamic that would be unmatchable in America. Now, if I know that, other people know that too. But there's this push, and I don't know who's pushing it, but there's this big push for black Americans and Africans and Caribbeans to think we're different. Well, we know we're different. Culturally, we are different. But guess what? White Americans, British, French, Spaniards, Australians, they're all different too. They're all culturally different. But when it comes to the interests of white people, they get on code and work together. So when black people from Africa, the Caribbean, and other parts of the world started coming here, we wanted unity. We wanted unity with other black people. But you came here and showed us a different side of you. And now we have the message. We got the message. So we know what you are about. And now it's time for you to know what we're about. And we ain't about that life. When your children get in trouble, it's about you. It's not about us. Leave us out of it. And I'm being as candid as I can be without being mean. It is not my goal to be mean. It is my goal to get my point across. So that's all I have to say about this. Y'all let me know what you think about the video. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share the video. And as always, have a great day.